We are live. Hello, happy Wednesday. I am so excited, not just as a part of Dad's Guide, but as a fan to chat all things D23 Expo. As you can see in the caption of the post and everywhere that we were talking about, we have Danny Schuster, the co-owner of Dad's Guide, here to chat with us about everything that he saw and did at this year's D23 Expo. So when you're here, say hello. I already see Patty is the first guest in the house. Hello, hello. When you hop on, tell us that you're here. Tell us where you're watching from. We love getting to know where our friends are all over the globe. Hello, Randy. Good to see you. And yes, I love the Danny's plural. Perfect. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions. We're going to be talking all things D23 Expo. Hello, Amy. Hello, Sharon. All right. I see we have our friends here. Courtney's here from Hudson Valley, New York. Like couple hours away from me, not too far. So without any further filibustering, let's bring on the guest of the hour, Danny Schuster, the other Danny. Hello, hello.
Hi, Danny. It's so fun to be here.
I know, and guys, everyone in the audience tonight, my first comment when I saw this Danny right before the show was, oh my goodness, I'm obsessed with that shirt. And look at that. Sharon, first one to comment.
Mine is Pizza Planet themed, combining two of my favorite things, pizza and Pixar.
Perfect. Pixar plus pizza equals perfection.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this now. We have a third person here involved in the stream who is in the quote green room. If you happen to guess this other person that is here in the background tonight, we will pop that special someone on the screen just so they can come say a quick hello. So that's our little teaser. If you can guess who that person is, they will come and say hi. So and look at this. Yes, extra claps and thank yous to this Danny for covering the expo.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. It was so much fun. It really, going to the expo is such a unique experience. I don't know if anyone in the comments has been to D23 either this year or one of the past expos. Maybe let us know in the chat if you've ever been in person. It's a really unique Disney experience to be a part of.
It sure is. I've been a couple times before, and it's no kidding, one of, if not the greatest thing that I've ever gotten to experience.
Do you know what's so cool about it? I was thinking about this as we were coming home from the convention. It's so unique to be in a place where everybody is excited about the same thing. And you kind of get that when you go to the parks, but sometimes people go to the parks like they're taking their family, and maybe not everybody's into it, but they're going because it's part of a whole thing, or they want to bring their kids, or you know what I mean? But when you're at the convention, when you're at the expo, you are in a space with, I don't know, there are 100,000 people there, maybe. And everybody is there for the same reason. There's a real energy to the whole experience.
I love that. That energy is my favorite part as well. And before we dive in to Danny's show and tell, I see one name was mentioned more than once, and that name is Steph, and that name would be correct.
Hi, everyone. I'm just in the background tonight, but it's nice to see you.
Steph is helping us answer comments and respond in the chat. Steph was also my backup at D23, helping prepare some of the Facebook posts and other posts while I was busy doing the live story coverage.
Yeah.
You guys killed it.
It's a team effort.
Always a team effort.
That's right. All right, so now, Steph, we'll be in the comments. Steph, I will bump you back into the green room so you can go back into the comments.
Thank you so much. Have a great show, guys.
I just want to, in case anybody doesn't know the whole story, so there's Danny and Steph. Steph is my wife, and together we own and operate WDW Magazine, which also owns and operates Dad's Guide to WDW. That's why we were making all the funny when I was doing the live coverage. It's like, hey, I'm Danny. I'm the other Danny, not the Danny that you know, because we've known Danny McBride for years.
We met Danny McBride for the first time at D23 2015.
That's true.
That is right.
Anyways, so it's all one big happy Disney family.
Great story recap. I did not even think of doing that. It's like just so second nature to me that I forget this whole.
Yeah, sure. Well, we've been doing all this together for the last 7, 8 years, something like that. But people in the comments, they might not know. They might just see two guys named Danny.
Yeah. That is so true.
The
I love
cheapest Danny's. Have a great show, guys.
Thank you, Steph. We'll see you in a little bit. Alrighty. So now, show and tell time, please. That is what I am most excited to see.
Okay, so I have a small selection of things that I got. These are all exclusive D23 items. Shopping is a huge part of the D23 Expo. There's exclusive stores, limited edition merch. There's also really like super limited stuff that you can't even buy. Some of the things that I want to show tonight are exclusive gifts that I was fortunate enough to receive because of some of the panels I attended. So I've got all kinds of cool stuff in no particular order. Let's start with a couple of pins because I know everybody loves pins. This one comes from Mickey's of Glendale. Mickey's of Glendale is sometimes called the Imagineering store. Sorry about that. Mickey's of Glendale is sometimes known as the Imagineering store. It's a store that's usually not open to the public, but during the D23 Expo, they set up a special, they call it MOG, Mickey's of Glendale. This year, you had to join a virtual queue to get into the store to shop. So this version of Mickey is the Imagineering logo. So I've got that one. And then to make it even more limited edition, so there was the main Mickey of Glendale store. Then in a different part of the expo, there was the Mickey's of Glendale X D23 Expo store that had even more limited edition stuff, which is where I got this pin. It's a little hard to see on camera, but it's actually like sculpted. It's not just a flat, like it's embossed, it's raised, and it's hefty. This is like a thick chunk of metal, and it's got, so they announced during the expo, obviously we're on the eve of the 100th anniversary of the Disney company, founded in 1923, and so they're doing this platinum celebration, and it's a little hard to read on camera, but Mickey's not just in silver shorts, it's this new sort of platinum color, like the 50th at WDW, how that gold color is iridescent and has sort of some other colors in the shimmer. This platinum, it looks silver, but as the light hits it, you get sort of these other colors reflected in it. One more pin to share. This one was not available for purchase. This pin was given to everyone who attended the Disney Legends / opening ceremony of the expo. This is where they kicked off the announcements about Disney 100. And again, it's got all the silver parts of the pin you can see are kind of that iridescent multicolor shimmer. So that one's pretty cool. That one's special. I'm hanging on to that one.
Those are insane, and the Alvarados clearly have my number. And I've been thinking, like, should I sell some of my pins? Like, some of them have gone up in value. We have a baby on the way. Like, should I get rid of some? Good thing I didn't go, because whatever I would have made from that, if and when, would have
just funneled it back into new pins. Couple more things that I want to show off before we keep going. Maybe I'll hold a couple items back and we can come back to them later if we want to do show and tell. But since somebody commented on my shirt already, I wanted to show off this new Pizza Planet Hawaiian shirt. This is Disney X Junk Food, which is a company that I'm not familiar with. But this was in the D23 Expo marketplace. And I love, you can see the little green alien men saying, ooh, for the pepperoni Pizza Planet pizza. It's got the Pizza Planet logo worked into the design somewhere. It's an all over. There you go. Pizza Planet. Anyways, it's not enough to just have one all over pattern Pizza Planet Hawaiian shirt. I have to, funny story, in my closet, which is largely full of Hawaiian shirts, I have not one, not two, not three, but 4 different Star Wars themed all over Hawaiian pattern Aloha wear shirts.
Those are my favorite. But I have a question on that one that you just showed us.
Yeah.
The collector in me is seeing that, and the first thing that comes to mind is, what would I do if I wanted to preserve the little D23 Expo sticker on there?
Right. Okay. So so there's this reflective sticker. I mean, obviously you can't keep it on the shirt if you're going to wear it. Do you know what I might do if I'm not a serious collector. I like these things, but I like to have them and use them and wear them, and I don't put them behind glass. I don't, that's not how I collect things. So what I would do maybe is, there are some souvenir programs from D23 that they give you, like with all the schedule and stuff. I might peel that sticker off and like put it on the cover of my 2022 D23 program guide, and then maybe save that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Maybe I'll, you know what? I did get some postcards at D23, Danny. If you really like that sticker, I can stick it to a postcard and mail it to you. Some collectible mail coming your way.
Don't even tempt me with that good guy. Danny, Debbie has a question. Did you run into someone at the expo that you were surprised to meet?
I ran into lots of people, like a lot of Disney friends and people that I know on social media, people who subscribe to WDW Magazine, or, people who just follow online. Like, we got recognized a couple of times, which is always a thrill and fun to say hi to people. In terms of like celebrities and stuff, it's mostly Disney celebs. Like, so there are people that I think are famous that maybe the general public is not super excited about, but like Tony Baxter, who's an Imagineer you might be familiar with. He's done many things at Disney, but Big Thunder Mountain is probably his most notable achievement. He was sitting across from me, across the aisle at one of the panels, and I was like, it's Tony Baxter. That's crazy. I don't know if everybody would recognize Tony, but I did, and I thought that was super cool.
That is incredibly cool.
Yeah.
I love him. Alrighty. So, question for you that I was wondering, and especially since it's such a core focus of Dad's Guide.
For sure.
Talking crowds. What obviously, I mean, from my past personal experience, crowds are always packed beyond packed. But from your experience this time, what was the crowd situation like? How long were people waiting for certain things?
Crowds is a reality of D23. There's no getting around it. There are a lot of people, a lot of crowds. You're gonna wait in line for things at D23. There's no two ways about it. I'm trying to find, I've got some photos to share, and I took a couple of crowd specific pictures that I'm looking for. Each morning, there's always a huge crush of people trying to get into the convention. Here we go. Let me share my screen and I will show you what I'm talking about.
Let's see.
So, because I was attending D23 as part of the media, my media credential did let me get in the building a little bit ahead of time. So here's me. I'm up on the second floor of the convention center. I was waiting to get into a panel, and this is like a second or two after 9 o'clock, which is the official opening time when they sort of release the gates and let everybody stream in. This is, again, just a portion of the crowds. They do their best to manage the crowd levels at D23. When you arrive in the morning, you clear security, and then you'll get funneled. Are you going to a specific panel? Are you here to shop? Are you, here for a cosplay meetup? Whatever. And they will try to funnel the crowds, but you're going to wind up in a holding queue until the doors officially open at 9. The size of that queue, it really depends on what it is you're waiting for. Like the big panels in Hall D23, the Marvel panels, that sort of thing, we're talking thousands and thousands of people, and they'll be in sort of like a basement level of the convention center, just in rows and rows of queues with their wristbands waiting for their chance to enter.
That shot is unbelievable.
I don't have it queued up to share, but if you go back in the Instagram, it's probably in the story highlights. I did do a little time lapse of these people as they funneled in. And it was something to watch. I was glad to be on the second floor watching it, as opposed to being in the crowd making my way into the event.
Okay, and I'm not just saying this because we're live and you're right here, but when you posted that time lapse, I thought that it was something that they gave you like in an email for media, and I was like, did they send like an email already with like assets to use? I'm like, because that's really cool. Like, how did that happen?
That was just a fortunate right place at the right time. Like I say, I was granted a little bit of early access. The media still has to queue for the different panels. We just queue in a smaller media section that's obviously just a portion of the overall crowd. So I just happened to be in the right place. We saw the motion happening out of our eyes, out of the windows, and I hopped over to get that photo and record that little video. I want to show another. This one's a little bit darker, but I want to show another picture. When you go to these panels, crowds are a reality, and this might be the view that you wind up getting. So this was at the Disney Legends panel, and even with my reserved seating, we were pretty far back from the stage, and I saw a lot more of people holding up their iPhones to record than I did of the actual people on stage. Now, they've got these big Jumbotron screens, like you don't miss anything. But if you've ever been to the parks on like a really crowded night to watch the fireworks or Harmonious or any of the nighttime shows, sometimes that even when you try to get that primo spot, you wind up sort of watching the show through a sea of arms, trying to record or get a better view for themselves. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you've never been to D23 before, their crowds are just a reality of the experience.
So you just mentioned something that I would love for us to talk about next, and that word is parks.
Mm-hmm.
And you also mentioned harmonious, which I don't know what word to use regarding harmonious being replaced. I'm going to bet and hope everything that I have that is temporary. So I guess let's dive in.
Yeah, you know what, Danny? Let's use the word conflicted, because that's how I feel about that announcement about harmonious.
I like that word. That makes a lot of sense. So,
just to catch everybody up in case you didn't watch the panels or you missed it in our coverage or our recap, during the parks panel, which was called A Boundless Future, the Sunday morning big ticket panel, when they're doing all the announcements about Disney parks and products and experiences, they announced that at Epcot, Harmonious, which has not even been around for a year at this point, is going away, is going to be replaced with a new, not yet named Nighttime Spectacular.
And if you guys have been here since October, or I guess late September when it unofficially debuted, you guys might know how obsessed I am with Harmonious. So when I heard that, I was like, wait, am I reading this right? Could this really be the news that's like being presented to me? And I was like, wow, I guess it is.
So here's what I'm thinking is that I guess Harmonious debuted as part of the Walt Disney World 50th celebration, which is not going to be celebrated forever because it's an anniversary and that's how time works. You move on from these things. So perhaps a more permanent show, like it's clear that they're still going to be using that infrastructure at Epcot. The big ring, the water fountains, the floating barges, the LED screens, like that stuff, that was a huge investment, a huge modification to the park. I don't think any of that's going away. The particular music and videos and lights and effects, it sounds like that's going to be updated and changed. But it also, to me, seems like if they wanted to, they could just program multiple shows and switch up what's on display each night, right? Like if it's utilizing the same infrastructure, they could change them whenever they feel like. Maybe, he says, guessing.
I would be so here for that. Like, I think that would just totally spice things up, be entirely creative and original. I think that would be super cool. And now I see others are talking Happily Ever After and Enchantment.
Enchantment. So, okay. I'm actually pretty excited that Happily Ever After is returning. Enchantment, it was a nice show. I'm a little bit confused that they launched Enchantment for the 50th and then just recently did a small update to the intro of Enchantment that had like that new Walt video clip. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I don't know why it wasn't like that from day one. Enchantment was nice. I think Disney has mastered the art of the projection mapping technology, the way they can transform the castle into whatever they want with the projection technology. Like, that's stunning. The song didn't resonate with me as strongly as others have. I don't know. I'm excited for the return of Happily Ever After.
I love Happily Ever After, and I'm clearly in the minority, and I have heard it for this opinion in the past, but I personally prefer Enchantment to Happily Ever After. I know that I am in the minority. I am so happy that everyone else is happy. I think that's great. I know that virtually everyone was demanding for this to happen. Me, I'm like, really? We just got an even better Enchantment, and now it's going away. I still like Wishes the best, though, of all time Magic Kingdom.
This is the thing, right, Danny? Like, I've been in the Disney sphere for a while, and I was here when Wishes got replaced with Happily Ever After, and people were very upset about that change. And then I was here when Happily Ever After became Enchantment. There's always strong reactions. When Illuminations went away for Harmonious, that was a big to-do. I loved Harmonious, that Harmonious Live on Disney Plus. That was incredible. I'm hoping that Harmonious, do you know how every once in a while in California they bring back the original Soarin'? I'm really hoping that like every once in a while they'll bring back Harmonious. That's my personal hopes and dreams.
That is a great idea. By the way, I have to point out, Grant, from your lips to Bob Chapek's ears, I would love this idea if this should happen whenever we are ready. You tell us.
Sure. This is about using our media access to share early previews. I mean, so here's the thing when it comes to media access is it's always a very special opportunity, and it's always a privilege when we get it. Sometimes this has happened to Steph and myself for WDW Magazine. Sometimes when you're given media access, it comes with an embargo date. So we get to go and take photos or record videos, do the things. But then Disney has this happened with Star Cruiser. We got to go to Star Cruiser before the public got to, but there was a very stringent embargo date, so we weren't able to give any of those sneak peeks because we want to play nice with Disney, because we want to keep getting those invitations.
Exactly. So now let's dive into some of the other big parks panel announcements. So Danny, can you tell us a little bit about the what was it, the blue sky portion of the Walt Disney World section? Because that, to me, had some of my personal favorite announcements of that whole section.
That was very cool. So blue sky is, I don't know if they invented the term, but it's certainly a term that the Imagineering department uses when they're just thinking without limits, dreaming about what might be, what could be. Let me share my screen because I've got some photos to go along with this.
Let's see.
So we got to the blue sky portion of the parks panel on Sunday. And I want to be clear for people here, for people who are watching, none of these plans had concrete dates. None of these things are for sure going to happen. These are just we're thinking out loud here. And I mean, honestly, some of these ideas I think are phenomenal, and I would love to see them come to life. Whether they come to life exactly as depicted, that's anyone's guess. So here they're specifically talking about Animal Kingdom, and they're talking about how there's a whole portion of the park, what's currently Dino Land, that is ripe for reimagining. So one of the potentials was a Moana themed expansion. I think this is a beautiful tie-in with the sort of philosophy of the Animal Kingdom park, the way Moana, is a friend of the ocean and the importance of the animals and living in harmony with nature. I think it's a natural fit. It would also introduce a water element to Animal Kingdom, which, there's Cali River Rapids and there's the otters and stuff, but Animal Kingdom is predominantly land and jungle based, I would say.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So that was that. We're jumping over a bit. Sorry, these photos aren't necessarily in order. This is not blue sky. This is happening. This is the expansion to Avengers Campus in California, which they talked about at 2019 D23 and then sort of got put on hold and delayed in COVID, and we all know the story there. But now they're talking about it again, a new e-ticket ride, a third one coming to the land, which I think is going to be great. Now we're back to blue sky here. So this is Magic Kingdom. This was the most interesting to me. They were calling this Beyond Big Thunder Mountain. If anyone wants to pull up Google Earth and look at WDW in Florida, you'll see, that was the whole point of the Florida project. They have space to do whatever they want. And if you think about the geography of Magic Kingdom in Florida, Big Thunder Mountain is kind of the edge of Frontierland. So this idea was, what's on the other side? What's beyond Big Thunder Mountain? And they're talking about incorporating Coco and Encanto, and what happens in this valley behind those mountains. And honestly, I'm here for it. Both of those movies were great. I know they have a very strong fan response and fandom and devotion to these characters. I say bring it on. I'm sure in the Encanto area, Mirabelle's mother is famous for her cooking, right? I'm sure I would love to see some sort of Colombian-inspired restaurant. I think that would be amazing. Who knows? I'm sure there'll be attractions and stuff too, but in general, I like this idea, and I hope this one continues to progress forward.
Me and you both. So I've been thinking for a while, this is just my personal thought. Every time that I go on Grand Fiesta Tour in the Mexican Pavilion in Epcot, I keep thinking, I personally love this ride, beyond love it. But I just feel like this is such a prime space that has Coco written all over it. But I'm like, how would they manage a queue? The crowds would be insane. It would be such a big thing to put in this like already determined allotted space.
Yeah.
But this now makes a lot of sense to
Yeah.
do something Coco over in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have the concept art handy to show, but we got to talk about the other big tease was they announced the idea of a villains expansion. And let me tell you, being in that room, the crowd went bananas. Like it was like being at a rock concert. People were like, "Yeah, villains land!" It was pretty amazing. I mean, it makes sense. The villains are popular. The heart of Disney is storytelling. What makes a compelling story? You need a conflict, you need an adversary. Having the villains, like all of that makes sense to me. I am not a villains fan per se. Like there are Disney fans out there who live for the villains. That's cool. I'm happy for you guys. You should have more than just Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. Um, you know, I don't like to cheer for the villains. I like the happy endings and the good guys and I think it's a great idea. I think that it would be incredibly popular if they go forward with that plan. Do you know what I think? And here's my own Danny's blue sky. It's
Tell me.
not just villains land, it's heroes and villains. And the land dynamically changes. Like maybe it's a daytime, it's heroes, and nighttime, it's villains. But like it's the same rides, it's the same buildings, but with the power of Imagineering and the special effects and everything, what starts out, one way transforms at a certain point.
I love it. I think that is really, really cool.
If anyone's listening, that's my pitch.
And I think to your point of what the energy was like when you were there in that room, like let's look at our sample size right here.
Mm-hmm.
Once you mentioned villains, I mean, the comments that I was highlighting, it was just like boom, 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 villains, villains, villains. Like everyone seems to love, me included.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, for as long as I can remember, what I first started collecting were villains things, anything villains. Still to this day, if it has villains on it, I will probably go nuts for it. So I am a total villains person. And once I saw that Maleficent dragon with the purple background concept art that you shared on Insta Stories,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I am sold. When can we have this? And what is in store? Because whatever it is, I'm so ready.
Absolutely. I mean, like I say, just because it's not my thing, doesn't mean that it isn't a great idea and that there aren't tons of fans out there dying for it. One of the other things that I wanted to show, because this is, moving away from blue sky stuff that we don't even know if and when it's going to happen, I was really amazed with some of the announcements they made about things that are happening immediately. I think they said in the panel that this Hulk is going to be greeting a California adventure in like a couple of weeks. Like, that was wild to me to have an announcement that's going so fast from we didn't even know this existed to it's going to be real in the park and you can pose for selfies with it.
Yeah. That when you were there in person, because obviously it looks gigantic, larger than life through all the pictures and videos that I've seen.
Yeah.
But there, in terms of how it looked size-wise and how it looked in terms of like how it actually worked and operated, what's your take on all of that?
It looks great. It really I've never met a Hulk, but it's what I imagine Hulk size to be. Let me switch and share because this project has actually been in the works for a while, Disney Imagineering, and they've been teasing this. I've seen this at other media events. It's called Project EXO, EXO. and we had no idea what Project EXO was about, and they were being very vague and very non-committal. And I've seen this model around a bunch of times with fur on the chest, and the fur was a total red herring, because like we would ask these Imagineers, you know, because like I say, I've seen this at a number of media events. Well, who's this for? What's the application? And they go, this is a proof of concept. This is going to allow us to bring characters to life we've never been able to do before. So it would, you know, and that was the line. And then you see this torso covered in fur, and you're like, well, that doesn't look like anything that I know. And it was a total, but it makes such perfect sense for the Hulk and for other characters that are, you know, physically large. You again, this is a still photo, so like it's hard to see, but it's quite dexterous. The person who's controlling, they have a lot of independent control over the joints and the fingers, and like there's a lot of range of motion. It's really quite cool. It's all 3D printed, and it's, I didn't get to touch it myself, but they were showing us it's not rigid. Like it looks like rigid plastic, but it's actually kind of rubberized. Like it's got bend and flex to it. And then so you can see these are the stages of, you know, they prototype and they refine the design and figure out how to print these shapes so that they can assemble all of these different body parts. And then the performer who's inside these joints, like, so this cast member is showing us how it moves, and he's lifting it, you know, very little effort. They're much lighter than they look, partially because of this honeycomb structure, and partially because they're assisted on the inside. It's, again, it's hard to see about in the photo, but these are like pneumatic or hydraulic pistons that help carry the weight and move the joints.
That is so interesting. So now, everyone watching in the comments, what other characters, Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, you name it, what other characters are we thinking we can see come to life given this Project EXO technology? After the Hulk, of course. Like, are we talking, I mean, this is just how my brain works, which is a little bit more Pixar niche, but like the Abominable Snowman from Monsters Inc.
I'll tell you what I think, and again, this is just my own thoughts. I don't have insider knowledge. I'm not, this is just me putting dots together. They also mentioned in this parks panel that Figment is coming back to Epcot. And I know in the past, we've had the Dream Finder who had a little Figment puppet. And before that, we had sort of a classic mascot style Figment that you could do meet and greets with. I think we are going to see a totally new dinosaur, probably larger than life Figment. And I think Project EXO is the secret Imagineering sauce that's going to make that real.
I would love that. I was extremely excited when I heard the Figment news, because I immediately was like, oh my goodness, like my little guy, when he comes in November, when we take him to Walt Disney World, he will be able to meet Figment, which I've always wanted to do, but I never have. So I think that's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Tons
of cool stuff. It was just like, it was so fun to be in the room. This, like, so Jon Favreau came out, and again, the crowd went nuts when Jon came on stage. Maybe even a little bit more than when Kevin Feige from Marvel came out. Like, it was pretty close. The response to both was huge, to be clear. But maybe a slight edge to Jon Favreau at the parks panel. And so, you know, obviously talking about Galaxy's Edge and Batuu, and incorporating the characters that we know and love from the show. This Grogu is really amazing. He's fully articulated. He moves and he makes noises and he blinks his eyes and his ears flap, and it's too cute for words.
I love this, but my one complaint, obviously, is that it's coming to Disneyland and not Disney World, so I will not get to see it as often.
That is true. I'm right there with you. In, a lot of ways, the two Galaxy's Edges are identical, but also not. Like, they're on the surface, it seems like Galaxy's Edge, California, and Florida are exactly the same. But when you start digging a little deeper, there's different food options in California, there's different characters. Now, of course, Florida has Star Cruiser and the way that integrates with Batu, which California doesn't. So, it goes both ways.
Yeah, for sure. The California side of things, I thought in terms of things that are happening immediately,
Yeah.
really got a pretty good stack of, at least I thought personally, of things to come, especially in the way of entertainment, nighttime shows, Magic Happens returning.
Definitely. That parade, Magic Happens, I think it performed for a week or two before the parks closed due to COVID. So it's really great that comes back, because I know a few people saw it, but not a lot of people. So it's really nice to see that that's going to come back and get to have its full moment. I also thought it was really nice that California Disneyland gets to be the center of the 100 years celebration. Obviously, Walt Disney World's been huge in the spotlight with all the 50th stuff, but Disneyland, it's the original park, and some say the best park. And we're not going to settle that debate here tonight, but it makes sense to me for that 100th celebration to be anchored in California.
I totally agree. I think we hit the parks presentation fairly well. Was there anything else that you thought was super important or surprising that we didn't cover already?
Not really. It wasn't in the parks presentation, but I did get a nice up close look at the Tiana's Bayou adventure model if you want to see some of that.
Yes, please, because I have to say, did everything except for obviously my own personal gripe of loving Enchantment a tad more than Happily Ever After. Did everything else wow me? Am I probably pretty easily wowed? Sure, that's what I'm told often. But yes, everything wowed me. This right here, though, might be what I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah.
Of course, the blue sky stuff is so much bigger, but in terms of the more reality-based things, this
Yeah.
could be on top of my list.
This is real. This has an opening date. We're going to be able to ride this before long. So this was on the show floor. This was one of my highlights of the convention. This panel, or this building rather, was called The Wonderful World of Dreams. And it was hosted by Imagineering. And it was where they were showing off all these different models of things coming to the parks here in North America, but also coming to the global Disney parks. So they had this really beautifully detailed look at Tianas. And you can see right in here these beautiful multicolored lanterns on the inside that just look so beautiful. And they touched on this a bit more in the parks panel, how the whole area at nighttime is going to be extra gorgeous. I believe it was Charita Carter, who's one of the Imagineers leading this project, was talking about how they're using water mist and projections to give some of the nighttime glow and effects. And she called it water magic, I think was the term she used for these new lighting techniques they've developed.
I cannot wait. Side note, I met Sharita Carter and Kevin Rafferty when those two Imagineers were working on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Hollywood Studios. Ran into them and was like, hi. And I was like, can we take a selfie really quick? And they were like, yeah, sure, we're on our way to a meeting. And they proceeded to have a full conversation that I was trying to be so sensitive to oh, they mentioned they have a meeting. That could be I can't imagine how important that is. I will take my selfie so quick and let them go. They were so generous with their time and asking me questions about how my day was going and what I've done so far. It was just such a great moment. So I'm such a fan of both of them. And the fact that she's working on this attraction, I just could not love more.
Absolutely. I'll come back to this in a bit, but I did go to an Imagineering panel, and they were among Kevin and Charita were among the speakers at that Imagineering panel, and such fascinating stories about the past projects. I mean, they can't tell us very much about their future projects because Imagineering is a very secretive place. But really interesting people. And one of the things that Charita, one of the stories that she was telling, is that one of the favorite things to do in Imagineering is when a new attraction opens, the Imagineers like to just sort of hang around near the exit and just try and eavesdrop on what people are saying as they come out of the ride, because that feedback is invaluable, and that's their best method for getting that honest, true first impression when people exit the rides. And so they just try to be, nonchalant, just in the area, waiting to eavesdrop on what you have to say about their latest creations.
I love that. That is so cool.
So yeah, these are the Tianas model. Very, very excited. Staying in California, they also had this great look at Toontown, which is getting a lovely refurbishment. People were very concerned about Donald's boat and if it was going away, so there was a lot of relief to see the boat still in the model. They also gave us a look at the Runaway Railway, which is going to be inside the El Capitan Theater. The El Capitan Theater is a real place in California where they do movie premieres and stuff, but the El Capitan Theater is going to be the home of the West Coast Runaway Railway. No confirmation or non-confirmation. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same ride. We know from the concept art that the queue is going to be different, but the actual ride experience, I believe, is going to be the same as in WDW.
I love that. That looks amazing. I was such a big Toontown fan when we had it in Walt Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we're going to get like an updated version over there, I cannot wait.
Yeah, I love Runaway Railway. I think it's such a great ride. Like, I love the mechanic of the trackless vehicle. I think that they have done such a clever job. The way your car goes in and out of the different rooms, and then they use that projection mapping technology to completely change the environment. So they can reuse parts of the ride by having you exit and re-enter, but the scenery is new. Because of the freedom and flexibility that the trackless ride vehicle has.
I totally agree. I think that attraction is like it's a perfect example of why people like us, who are all Disney parks lovers, have so much faith still in what's to come. Because like the fact that they took the great movie ride that so many of us loved, and do I still look back on that attraction fondly? Of course. But the fact that I'm not really missing it too much because I love this new thing so much is just awesome.
That's a perfect segue, Danny, to talking about this Imagineering panel that I went to.
Let's do it.
So I went to this panel. It was called 70 Years of Imagineering. It was about, the history of, now it's called WDI, Walt Disney Imagineering. It used to be called WED Enterprises. WED is, of course, Walt's initials, Walter Elias Disney. So we went to this panel. They're celebrating their 70th anniversary. And you may have seen on Disney Plus, there's the Imagineering story, which is brilliant and a must watch, in my opinion, if you haven't seen it. So that was all directed by a woman named Leslie Iwerks, who is the granddaughter of Ub Iwerks, UB, Ub. Disney people in the know will know that Ub is a very important figure from the early days of the Disney company, pioneering many of the techniques that allowed them to make actual animated films. It's very important to the history of the company. Now his granddaughter, she's also a filmmaker and an author, and has all these credits to her name, including the Imagineering story. In addition to the series that you can watch on Disney Plus, she's just finished a book, also called The Imagineering Story, with more stories and interviews and a look at the process. So she hosted this panel where we had a bunch of Imagineers, and it was just an informal chat. Tell us about the process, what it means to be an Imagineer, how that creative flow happens. And one of the things that all of the Imagineers kept reiterating is that they only want to take on projects where they can make things better. So you were talking about the great movie ride and the transition to Runaway Railway. So I know sometimes people get upset when things change in the parks, especially if you have, a childhood memory or a particular attachment to it. But the ethos, the philosophy at Imagineering is we only want to touch this thing. We only want to modify it if we can make it better. And that really resonated with me from that panel.
That is awesome. I love those. I could listen to Imagineering stories, and hence, like you said, the Imagineering story is such a must-watch if you haven't. I also love, not that it is totally on the same wavelength. To me, I thought the Imagineering story was just a bit. It hit all the right notes for me. But I also think to kind of get not necessarily an Imagineering perspective, but just if you're like super interested in the Walt Disney Company and how it is, how all aspects of it also operate on Disney Plus. One Day at Disney was phenomenal. That's another really cool watch. If you are, I would imagine if you're into all this stuff that you watch it already. But if you haven't, that is another one that you have to check out.
Yes, absolutely. It's a different kind of look at what goes in, to the different jobs and behind the scenes. Here's a photo from that Imagineering panel. They didn't have a lot of, there wasn't like a sizzle reel, and there wasn't a lot of stuff it was just interesting people telling interesting stories. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Here in the middle in pink, this is Kim Irvine. Who's a Disney name people might know. She's a second generation important Disney person. When they redid the Haunted Mansion, so Kim's mother was the original Madame Leota. And when the Haunted Mansion was getting some updates and some refurbishments, and they needed to refilm the Madame Leota stuff, Kim stepped in, and because she has a very her voice is very similar, and she looks, obviously it's a mother-daughter thing, they look very similar. But yeah, so she's had her own career in Imagineering with, all kinds of interesting credits to her name. But many people know that Haunted Mansion detail.
I love that. She's one Imagineer that I have yet to meet that is super high on my list of selfies to take.
Yeah. This panel was great. So that's Kevin Rafferty and Sharita, who you've met both of, and I'm a little jealous of. And Kim, this is Jeanette. I'm blanking on her last name. And this is Bob Weiss. And some of them are current and some of them are retired Imagineers, but they've all worked on incredible projects that it was an interesting panel, but it was a panel that rewarded the deep dive Disney history buff kind of person. If you had just wandered in because you thought you were going to get like a sneak peek at Imagineering technology, I don't know that you would have had the best time. But if you know the history and you like to see behind the scenes, there were some interesting stories. I'll quickly tell Kim shared this one story that I thought was cool. So years ago, the Disneyland castle, they refreshed the paint job. The paint used to be very flat and like very sort of two-tone, and they added in all this subtle color variation in the brickwork to make it a little more depth and dynamic. And So Kim was leading the sort of vision for this, and she had done all of this artwork. This is how she tells the story. She'd done all of this artwork that wasn't super detailed because it was just about telling a color story. It was just to give you like an emotion about what the castle would look like. So she drew this sketch of the castle with all the new colors, but she didn't go in and draw all the fine details. She didn't include the drawbridge and the lanterns and all of the little, because that wasn't the point. It wasn't like a reference model. It was just an artistic painting. And when they started the refurbishment at Disneyland, they displayed Kim's artwork on the construction facade so that people could have something to look at that wasn't just a construction wall. And again, because Imagineers like to float amongst the crowd and hear the feedback, people were freaking out. They were going, oh my God, they're taking away the drawbridge. They're getting rid of these lanterns. What's happening to our castle that we love? And Kim tells this story. She's like, I got on the phone and she's like, we got to take those posters down. And she ran back to her office to draw a fully detailed artist mock-up so that they could put everyone's minds at ease. Because again, they only want to make things better.
That is so ridiculously cool. I love that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously that was 70 years of Imagineering. Another historical reference panel is the Disney 100 panel.
Disney 100.
So tell us a little bit about what that panel was like and what's coming. I mean, we've touched on some of it, but like what is coming as a part of the Disney 100 celebration?
This I'm very excited about personally. So the quickest recap. Walt and his brother founded what would become the Walt Disney Company in the year 1923, which is why we're coming up on this 100 years of celebration, this platinum anniversary. As part of those celebrations, Disney is planning this huge called Disney 100, the exhibition. They are actually making two of these. It's a traveling museum exhibit. There's going to be one in America and one international overseas. And they haven't released the full schedule of cities. It starts in Philadelphia. The domestic one starts in Philadelphia. The international one is going to start in Munich. And it is a gallery that captures 100 years of Disney movies and storytelling, but they really wanted to put together a unique, rich gallery. So I went to this panel where they told us about the design philosophy and the process. And one of the things that they said, since Disney's been around for 100 years, there's obviously lots of generations of fans, people of all ages, from all walks of life. And some people are very new fans. Some people are very old fans. And they didn't want this gallery to just be like a chronological, like starting with black and white Steamboat Willie, and now we've got Encanto, because people the people who don't have that touch point or fondness for the old stuff, they're not going to engage with this if they're just here to see Olaf. So they made a big point about explaining how this gallery isn't a chronology thing. It's about storytelling and different themes. And along the way, they've dug up all of these really cool artifacts from the Walt Disney Archives. I forget what its name is. Somebody in the comments maybe who's a history buff. This is there's a mirror and a series of paintings. I think these might be called zoetropes. It's been a while since my film history class. And it's on a wheel and you turn it and the pictures reflecting off the mirrors give the illusion of animated motion. A cinescope, I see somebody saying, that sounds familiar. So this is Walt's personal. It was on his desk, and if you remember the Walt Disney, the Wonderful World of Disney shows and stuff, you would see him, and he used this to explain the principles of animation. So there's all these like amazing artifacts in the exhibit. It's beginning, like I said, the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. That's the first place, but this exhibit is intended to run for 5 years, and it's traveling all across North America. It's going to be in Europe. It looks really amazing. They gave us a peek with even this. So this was part of the design concept. Here's the poster for the 100 exhibit. And you can see Mickey's hand here pulling back the curtain. And they were just talking to us, you know, the lengths that they go, even just on something like that, to get the hand position just right. So, you know, it looks elegant and effortless as they draw the curtain back. And these are the stages. You go from a rough pencil sketch to some colors. You know, now they're really getting into the fine points of the hand position and how the fingers go. It was really fascinating. As somebody who does design work for a living, you know, I lay out the WDW magazine. It was so interesting for me to see the stages and the care and detail that goes into something like this.
So Randy said Cinescope. He then said so much for my thinking as a result of art teacher Marissa jumping in and saying that you were spot on with zoetrope. So nice.
I did. It's been a few years, but I did some film history classes, and yeah. Anyways, very cool stuff. What's really great about this exhibit is so they have these historical artifacts, but people don't just want to go to a museum and look at something under a glass, you know, protective barrier. That's not engaging. So they have found ways to take these artifacts and add through projections and lights to add layers to them. One of the examples they gave is they have the bejeweled book that is in the intro to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or is it Sleeping Beauty? To Sleeping Beauty. I posted a story about this on the Instagram. You may recognize that book. It's in the intro for the old Sleeping Beauty movie. Starts opening the pages. And so they have the actual book that's going to be on display as part of this gallery. But again, looking at a book under glass, that's not very interesting. But they showed us how when the book is open, how they can use projection mapping onto it to make it look like the artwork is animated and comes to life while you're looking at it.
That is going to be incredible. So, Marissa, I was just thinking that, and I'm assuming it would have to come to New York because you guys would have to meet our little guy at some point. So why not something like that? I mean,
I hope so. They did announce, so Philadelphia is the beginning of the America tour. Munich is the beginning of the international tour. They did also announce that it's going to Missouri. If anybody wants to also go to Marceline and then go see this Disney thing. Marceline, of course, Walt's hometown. And, I'm blanking. Chicago, which is also an important city in Walt's early life. I don't know that all of the stops are going to be related that way, but at least the first few stops all have significant tie-ins with Walt's early life.
That is brilliant. I love that. And yes, Marissa, listen, Philly, you were right. It's not that far with a newborn by that point. I mean, New York would be ideal, but Philly, I mean, I'm not gonna be shocked.
I like I say, it's touring for 5 years. I'm confident it will come to New York. I'm hoping that it comes north of the border near Toronto. I'm up for a drive to Philly to go and see the exhibit too, but it'd be nice if it came a little bit closer to home for me.
Totally. I saw we had a question which Steph already tackled for us. It was Denise asking if we would ever go again to the D23 Expo, and Steph answered for us and nailed it. I mean, 1,000,000,000% yes. So, Danny, for anyone who is watching or will watch on the replay, if they haven't been to a D23 Expo, can you show what some of quickly, because I know we're already running long, but Listen, I'll stay here as long as you want. I
you
will
can
listen
keep
to story all
talking.
night.
Yeah.
But things like the Disney Legend Ceremony and Masquerade, things that are Expo staples, can
Yeah.
you show what those things are and what they were like this time around?
For sure. I've got some photos queued up from the Masquerade if you want to take a look at those.
I would love to.
Okay, here we go. So the Masquerade, like Danny said, this is a staple of the D23 Expo. I mean, there are some costume rules and stuff that everyone needs to abide by, but if you want to get your best cosplay, your best Disney bound, and you want to walk the show floor, that's you go for it and like live your best life. People love seeing the costumes, they pose for photos, etc. In addition to just everybody generally being in costume and thematically Disney, they have the official Masquerade. This is like an extra application and stuff, but there's big cash prizes, and it's this, official costume contest. So this year it was hosted by Nina West, who did this phenomenal musical intro, and every time the songs changed, she was ripping off her outfit. She had like layers and layers and layers of different Disney outfits on, ripping them off, doing these quick costume changes, and people were just living for it. It was super fun. These were all the finalists. So there were different categories. I believe this category was the inspired by movies and film and TV. And so like, we've got, this one was great. This is actually the very first one of the night. This is from WandaVision when it was still black and white, and this person did their makeup to be monochrome, and it was this perfect Agatha from WandaVision. This woman, so she was Rapunzel, and this is the after version of her costume. So she came out and she looked just like the classic purple Rapunzel dress. She's got the long flower braid in the back, but then she like pulled a string and the dress flipped open, and this was the mural that Rapunzel has been painting on the ceiling. And she was like twirling around. It was really incredible. We had a gummy bear. If anybody remembers that animated show, that's a deep cut. This Louisa from Encanto was really amazing. I mean, the costume is not that complicated. It's a blue skirt and a white top. But what she did is she sculpted out of silicone the whole upper torso so she could have the big muscles, the big biceps. She made that herself, which I think is pretty amazing. And then she had this like styrofoam, or I don't know, something, this donkey that was very light. It was super cool. It was super fun. I think Agatha won this round of the costume contest, if I'm not mistaken. They were all amazing. And like, so everybody comes and there's music, and, the judges were hilarious. Nina West is emceeing. It's like really high energy. You come out and you do a little performance, and they tell you some details about, this person hand sewed or hand painted, all these things. It's quite cool. This one was a category of mashups. So this was titled Alice in Pixar Land. And it was just so brilliant. This is, I'm blanking on the name from A Bug's Life. Heimlich?
Yep.
Heimlich as the Cheshire Cat, and Alice inside the Up House. Like, it was just so cool, so inventive. I just loved it. It was so much fun. This one was my personal favorite of the whole. So this was inspired by the Dumbo attraction. And again, it's a still photo, hard to convey the motion, but this woman made a working, these Dumbo carousels. They go up and down, and the whole apparatus spins. It's incredible. She came out on stage, it wasn't doing anything, and like, it looked great. She came out, you're like, clearly she's Dumbo, and then she just kind of presses a button and puts her arms up, and then all of a sudden the Dumbos come to life and start spinning. Like, the crowd, like jaws were on the floor.
Wow. I wish that I could do things like this. Kara totally can. And we were back before we knew that we were going to have a little guy coming later
Yeah.
this year. We were planning on this being the year that Kara was going to go full cosplay, think of something, and go all out. But next time, and I mean, I just would love to get to do these type of things, but I'm much better at watching and being in awe of the others doing them. I would have no idea where to even start.
Me too. Me too. They did pull. So the Masquerade, the participants, like I said, this is done in advance. You have to apply and be selected for this like formal uh, um, contest. But anybody can wear costumes on the show floor. But they did pull a few people up from the audience. They needed to stretch a bit of time because this year the Masquerade was broadcast live and you could cast your vote over the internet for the winner. And so in order to build in a bit of buffer time for all that voting, they pulled some people out of the audience who were not necessarily in costume, although most of the audience was in costume. And they had them doing like a lip sync dance off thing. It was quite entertaining.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is such a staple. Let's head over to Disney Legends because one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
You might know who, if you're watching, you might also know who Adina, as like just the greatest ever, was inducted.
Yeah.
So tell me how that one was, what the crowds were like, what the energy was like.
It was a really fun panel. Again, totally full. So that's one of the panels that was in Hall D23, which is the big, huge stage. People were lined up, camped out. You had to get a wristband to be admitted. It was great. It's so interesting, because all the Disney Legends are popular for different reasons. And it was so interesting to see the crowd reaction to different people coming on stage. This year, there were a lot of film and television recognition. Like anyone can be a Disney legend. Disney legends are recognized. People who work within the company, people who are, like celebrity personalities, artists, Imagineers. Anyone who's involved in Disney is eligible to be a legend. This year, they leaned heavily on film and television, and so you could tell, what the crowd, like Patrick Dempsey, who I guess is on Grey's Anatomy, a show I've never watched, although he's also in that Enchanted and I guess the Disenchanted, the sequel that's coming out soon. Anyways, when they called up Patrick Dempsey, the crowd went bananas. When they did, so the whole cast of Frozen, so Josh Gad, Jonathan Groff, Kristen Bell, Idina Menzel, they were all given Disney Legends status this year. They all received thunderous applause. Maybe Idina's was the loudest, maybe Kristen. It's hard to, they were all great. Josh's speech was very funny. He told a story. He applied to be a Disney cast member when he was a teenager to be a Jungle Cruise skipper, which incidentally, I bet he would have been a pretty great skipper. But for whatever reason, he didn't get the job. And in his speech, he was saying, from now on, he wants to always be referred to as Disney legend Josh Gad, including the person who didn't hire him at Disney to please update his resume to say Disney legend Josh Gad.
I listened to the Frozen. I heard from like the Frozen crew and on. I think I heard their speeches, and they were, Josh Gad especially was so funny.
Yeah,
it was hysterical. And Debbie, nail on the head, Chadwick Boseman's brother's speech.
That was very emotional. The crowd was really, there wasn't a standing ovation, but I feel like there was almost, like, that energy in a crowd when people are like really, and it's like, oh, do we get up? Do we not get up? Like, but you could tell that was very impactful. A couple of the recipients mentioned Chadwick, having known him personally. That was very poignant.
Yeah, it was like he was just, and he was like so commanding. Like once he started speaking, I was just paying full attention and just like stopped doing my multitasking that I was doing and just paid full attention. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, out of all of these panels that you attended, if you had to pick a number one favorite, I think I know what it would be, but I still have to ask which
Sure.
one is it?
The one I enjoyed the most was the parks panel, for sure. Just that look into the future. Like I came to D23 because Disney parks, I like I like the merch and I like the movies and I like the food, but the parks is the core for me. So that parks panel, and that look at the future and the blue sky talk, and that was my number one for sure.
I don't blame you. That has been my number one whenever I have been in the past too. So it's just that to me is the primary reason for people like us who are obsessed with the parks to want to go. Is there anything else? I know that we saw a little bit from the show floor from the Wonderful World of Dreams Pavilion. Is there anything else on the show floor?
I'm going to show, yeah, I've got a couple more photos. I know we've gone a bit over time, but let me share a couple more things before we wrap up.
I would love that.
So, just on the topic of costumes and dressing up, this Kevin, this is not like, this is just a fan who made this incredible Kevin costume and was just walking around the show floor posing for photos and yucking it up. And he found this. So, this greenery behind him, Disney has lots of photo spots set up where you can pose for selfies and stuff. And this was, I think this was maybe a Pirates or a Jungle Cruise themed thing. And it was just a photo backdrop that anybody could go and use. But then Kevin found it and he was very interested in the greenery. And like, it was so great. Another really cool thing that was at the expo this year, this is Walt Disney's plane. This is a private jet, a Gulfstream that they've meticulously restored over the years. And they put a whole plane inside the convention center. That was cool. I don't know. There was a lovely little accompanying gallery, like showing you all the, like what the seats looked like and what the menus and stuff and, the tickets to fly on the plane. That was all very cool. We got a look at Disney fairy tale weddings. This is the pumpkin carriage that you can arrive in for your wedding if you have a Disney fairy tale wedding. That was super cool. Whoops, jumped ahead there. Flynn's Arcade for my Tron fans out there. Obviously, Tron is on everyone's mind with the roller coaster coming soon, although not as soon as we might have hoped. It's also the 40th anniversary of the original Tron, so they had some of these props from the film, which, I mean, they looked a lot cooler in the movie, but it was a different time. And then one other one that I want to show off, this was my personal highlight of the show floor, was the Disney Broadway booth. So you had to queue up, but there wasn't that bad of a line. You queue up and they bring you in, and it's a virtual reality Disney on Broadway experience. So there's these wonderful comfy chairs, much more comfy than any of the real chairs on Broadway. And you get sat down and they hand you a VR headset, an Oculus, and a pair of headphones. Everybody gets comfy. They put on the headset, they put on the headphones, and you get taken in virtual reality into a Broadway show. And I don't just mean like in the audience watching, I mean on the stage. And because you're in VR, you can look all around you. You can look up and see the stage lights. You can look into the wings and see the curtains. So they do one number from Frozen, one from Aladdin, and one from The Lion King. And so for the first one for Frozen, it's like you're pressed right up against the front of the stage. That's your vantage point. For Aladdin, it's as if you are physically on stage with the dancers moving like to your left and right. And then with The Lion King, they actually give you this really cool like bird's eye view It's this scene here where Rafiki is presenting baby Simba, and you've got this like bird's eye view that you would never be able to get in real life. But the VR makes you feel like you're right there experiencing it.
I would love that. It's been a while since I've seen a Disney show on Broadway, and I've been dying to get to one again. So, like, I would have loved that. And I saw a video on, I want to say it was on YouTube, of the guy who plays the genie in Aladdin, that he surprised people who were at the Disney on Broadway booth, and when they were watching on the Oculus, he was like getting there, and then when they took him off, there he was. I would have went bananas.
Right. So he's the host when you're in the VR goggles. He's the host explaining to you what's going on. And, and now we're going to see Frozen. But then he was there in person. He kicked off the Legends panel. And then I guess for some lucky people, he decided to come out on the show floor. And they went from seeing him in the goggles to taking off the goggles. And he's right there in person. Pretty amazing.
That is unbelievable. Yeah. I would love that. So I know we covered a ton, but I have one more question to ask. And it is food related. And I, on purpose, saved this for last.
Okay.
Coming to Disneyland, downtown Disney in particular, Din Tai Fung was announced. I ate at Din Tai Fung last year when I went to Vegas. Have you and Steph ever eaten at that Din Tai Fung or any other Din Tai Fung?
I've not had the pleasure, but I do know all about the restaurant. I'm very excited. Honestly, it coming to California probably makes it the closest one to me and the one I'm most likely to get to. Well, I think Steph is just over here to my side saying you could go to the one in Vegas. I think Anaheim is closer than Las Vegas to where we are. I'd have to...
I'm going to buy you a map for Hanukkah.
Oh, apparently I don't know my America geography very well. In case anyone doesn't know in the comments, I'm coming to you guys live from Toronto, Canada. So apparently Las Vegas is closer to Toronto than Anaheim is. So I'm being told. Anyways, I'm very excited. I have not had the pleasure of going to this restaurant yet, but I'm looking forward to it. The other food announcement was Porto's Bakery, which is apparently a California staple. Again, not being a Californian, I didn't know this, but the people around me in the panel who are from California, they sure knew. And we were actually treated to a little box of pastries from as we exited the panel. So that was a treat.
How were they?
They were excellent. There was like a little cheese croissant thing and like a passion fruit cookie. It was great. Can't wait to have it all again.
I cannot wait. When I heard Din Tai Fung, I could not believe it because we've spoken food, you, myself, Steph, several times. So I think we all know how much, at least you guys, of course, watching, if you've listened to me talk about food, will know. My favorite cuisine is Asian. I mean, I would eat it 7 days a week if I could. And at the top of my list, I don't know if I would say number one ever, but it's arguably number one of any Asian food that I've ever eaten is from Din Tai Fung when I was in Vegas. So when I heard that, I was like, you're kidding. This is going to be amazing because I'm like, I don't have plans to go back to Vegas. We're going to have a baby here. But Disneyland, absolutely. That will just work. So I was very happy.
Love it. Love it. Can't wait. I hope we can go at the same time and share a meal.
Oh, I would love that. Say no more. Randy, you know it. Around here, food will be a common topic. It doesn't take much to get that conversation started. So that's all that I have. Danny, any last words, comments, thoughts on the expo?
Just one last bit of show and tell. At the Parks panel, they did give us this exclusive poster to get everybody excited for the new Avengers attraction. It's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. Again, I don't know any insider info, but that ride vehicle to me, I don't know, kind of reminds me of Star Tours, kind of reminds me of like Indiana Jones or Dinosaur, something along those lines. I don't know. It looks interesting, and there's all kinds of cool Marvel Easter eggs. This is a cool poster. I'm really happy that I have this as part of my collection.
That is the coolest. I love that. And by the way, I see Shannon is here. Shannon is, in case you don't know, the owner of Destinations to Travel, our travel agency, official travel agency partners here at Dad's Guide. And Shannon, yes, next time we are all in Disneyland for an expo, I think Din Tai Fung, given this other comment you made, should be the place. Just saying.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate that. Thank you all so much for chatting with us. This was so much fun, so entertaining. Danny, thank you for talking, as doing all of the explaining of everything. This was so amazing for me because I got to kind of just like sit back and enjoy you doing the whole 101, well, not 101, the whole deep dive of what the expo had to offer. So this was amazing.
My pleasure. It's always great to come and chat. I had a blast doing the coverage on behalf of Dad's Guide. Super cool experience. I haven't been to D23 since 2015, so that was nice for me to get back there. And I'm always happy to come online and talk Disney with you, Danny.
Anytime. Tell me when, and we'll get one going. Just throwing it out there. So again, Danny, I cannot thank you enough. Everyone watching, thank you all. This was so much fun. Such a great night. And remember, until next time, adventure is out there. Have a great night.